Welcome back to the Unova region. A lot has changed since you've been gone. You'll meet new and old friends eager to push you to greatness, and familiar enemies trying to take it all away. Gameplay that takes the DNA of the first games and splices tons more Pokemon into the experience. This is Pokemon Black and White 2. Welcome folks, I'm Livvvid. Developed by Game Freak and released for North America in October 2012, Pokemon Black and White 2 are the direct sequels to Black and White released just a year prior. You return to the Unova region 2 years after the events from the first game. But this time, things are quite a bit different. In today's video, I'll be talking about these games and why I believe they may be the pinnacle of the Pokemon series. If you have not seen my Black and White video, I highly recommend it if you are not familiar with those games, as I will make reference to them. And this video will be more of a continuation from the previous video, which is an introduction to Generation 5 as a whole. I used both of my physical copies I purchased back when they were released for the gameplay footage. Back when these games were released, I was only a year into my new career as a United States Navy sailor.
Liberty and the pursuit of all who threaten it. Navy, accelerate your life.
Sailing the seven seas, checking port and starboard for any foes. You could smell the salty air as we traverse the world's oceans defending freedom. Except I was never stationed on a ship, because I was a dog handler. Haha, that's right. I got to train, utilize, and play with dogs all day. And the best part was dog handlers didn't get stationed on ships. I was training real Pokemon. In regards to Pokemon Black and White 2's release though, I don't remember it at all. I know that may be disappointing to hear. I just don't remember the day I bought them or much of my experience playing them back then. Obviously, it was a very busy time in my life, which is likely the reason. The production of this video is a great opportunity to see if I'd like these games or not. My personal bias coming in is I always liked Generation 5, despite it having people who disliked it then and still dislike it now. Upon my replay of the first games, it only made me like them even more. So going into the sequels, I was pretty excited to play more Unova, and that bias will certainly affect how I think about these games. Before we get started, if you end up liking this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I love making content for you guys, and it shows me you'd like more. Thank you. Although it's been 2 years since the events in Black and White, the Unova region has changed a lot. There are many new locations like the Marine Tube, Reversal Mountain, which is filled with liquid hot magma if you're playing White 2, and the whole southwestern portion of the map is entirely new. This new area has a farm, Verbank City, and Aspertius City, where your new player characters are from, Nate and Rosa. Rosa looks cool. Bear with me, this is a deep sports cut, but Nate's hair and cap setup reminds me of the NFL coach Doug Peterson. These characters have no relation to the former characters Hilbert and Hilda. Although those characters do exist, they aren't featured during the gameplay. You have a new friend and rival named Hugh. He's passionate and headstrong, but overall he's a good dude. He absolutely hates Team Plasma for stealing his little sister's Purloin, which was given to her by her grandfather who has since passed away. It's that theft that sends Hugh on a quest to retrieve it back for his sister. And yes, that means Team Plasma is back. Although they're going through a bit of a civil war within their group with mysterious motivations and changing leadership. What I like about Hugh in the era of your rivals are also your friends is they make me feel sympathetic towards him. We're already supposed to be friends, but oftentimes the player character is billed as the one everybody roots for and is depending on. Hugh's motivations make me root for him, and that's kind of new for me. I like it. I want to see him get that Purloin back for his sister. But we also want to go on an adventure like him, and we need a Pokemon. And that's where Bianca comes in, who is now the assistant to Professor Juniper. She gives us a choice of the Unova starters from the previous games. But this time around, it's not just Unova Pokemon. The entire region has been fleshed out with Pokemon from all previous generations. This addresses something some people wanted from the first games. They wanted new Pokemon, but they also wanted to see the old familiars too. I'm in the camp who likes both of these design philosophies. I genuinely like Black and White for having an entire Unova only experience. I don't see an issue with that type of design because in the post-game you got to see all those older Pokemon anyway. And if the complaint is, yeah, but you can't see those older Pokemon until the post-game, well, every generation in this era was like that. There's the classic case of Houndour not being available in Generation 2 games until the post-game. The way these games were designed back then just meant that's how it goes. Some Pokemon simply weren't available until later. For me, I want the new Pokemon front-loaded with the old Pokemon coming later. The way I play each generation is usually catching all Pokemon from that generation because I want to soak in all those additions and designs, but I understand that's not how everyone wants to play. With Black and White 2, you now get 2 entries of Unova games with wildly different experiences. Black and White 2 gives access to a huge amount of previous generation Pokemon, and I'm fine with that too. And Game Freak took that opportunity to make those older Pokemon choices much more interesting. Choices like baby Pokemon with Riolu, Magby, and Elekid, which can be caught before the second gym. Those types of options weren't common back then, especially not early. And getting them early is important to develop their friendship so they evolve. The rest of this western region has more to see, like the farm area and Burbank City, which is like a grimy port city. It's pretty cool. Even old places get changes too though. Castelia City has an accessible sewer system where you can find an empty lot with wild Pokemon. There is also Area 4, which has uncovered ruins or a new complex built over it depending on which game you're playing. Join Avenue, where you basically become a manager of a shopping district that can be expanded over time. The map itself is less of a clockwise adventure and more of a big tour of the region. Despite returning to the Unova region, you can start in an entirely new area, and then you take a sweet boat ride to Castelia City. From there, you zigzag to different areas of the map to progress through the game. You do this through caves, over water, and even on a plane. This provides a unique experience because you aren't repeating the same location beats from the previous games. You start off with something new, and then bam, you're in Castelia City. Just when you think you're about to encounter a town like Icarus, you fly to the opposite end of the map. This was a smart way to return to a region but make it feel new. There were even graphical changes added, like terrain around the Pokemon being given slightly more detail. I know it's small, but it must be effective because it immediately stood out to me when I played and it looked really nice. It's funny what a few blades of grass can do to add to a battle scene. The battle animations also seem much cleaner. They are less chaotic and hoppy. My own team for this game was a bit all over the place with a few changes throughout the journey. I also want to say up front, I had a bit of an ideological change that I didn't act upon, but I want to mention. At first, I wanted to do all Unova Pokemon because I just wanted to play with more Unova Pokemon. I was hyped up on my last playthrough for the first video and wanted to try more stuff I hadn't used before. But I thought about it more, and then I figured, hey, the Black and White 2 experience is about playing with older Pokemon too, since they're everywhere. So I softened to the idea of using whatever came my way. However, I still did use all Unova Pokemon because that's how it went. My team started off with Superior. I've always liked Snivy and the colors of Superior. I also have an issue with always neglecting grass types, so I figured this would be a way to force me to fix that. Darmanitan was next, and he's awesome. I love his outrageous attack stat. Braviary was another great Pokemon I loved using, and I could get it as a Braviary despite its level being well below the evolution level of 54. That's because there were static Pokemon that would show up throughout the game. Mandibuzz, Crustle, and a freaking Volcarona, and many more static Pokemon encounters were in these games. And a handful of them were at a much lower level than they would normally evolve at, which gave you an opportunity to play with them before the game ended. So I definitely took Braviary as it's one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. And I had to do it for Volcarona too because come on, it's so cool. Since it was a fire type though, I sadly boxed Darmanitan because I wanted to get good coverage on my team. Jellicent was my go-to water and ice type move user. I'm not totally in love with this design, and its ghost typing got me in trouble a lot. That's because I feel like there was a handful more dark types added to this generation, as well as a lot more dark type moves. Speaking of dark types, I also used a Scrafty. Its dark and fighting typing was actually really good because I could ignore psychic types, which would normally maul fighting types. Although now it was weak to fighting types, but that rarely came up. I'm also enamored by its whole pulling up its pants thing. It's funny as hell and a pretty unique design choice. Electros was one of my favorites because it has Levitate, making it entirely immune to ground type, meaning it has no weakness. Yeah, I'll take that. Excadrill was probably my MVP throughout this team though. Its steel type meant I was given tons of resistances, and it just hit so hard, especially after I taught it Earthquake. Finally, there was Terrakion. The 3 Musketeer legendaries are kind of thrown in your face in these games. They really want you to catch them, although they're still technically optional. They'll appear directly in your path throughout the game. Usually I opt to not use legendaries in my playthroughs, but when I caught a Terrakion, it had a Jolly nature, which worked perfect with its stats, and honestly I felt like Scrafty was kind of falling off for me. I know it was a great competitive Pokemon back in the day, but I don't know that world at all, and I probably underutilized its strengths. So I swapped to Terrakion and I loved using its Sacred Sword move. Luckily in Generation 5, I wasn't punished for swapping Pokemon all the time, since its experience multiplier will cover the gap when you're lagging behind in levels. I think Gen 5 did a really good job with that. It's the first time in the series where I didn't feel like grinding wild Pokemon for experience was necessary at all. And with my team assembled, I could talk about the journey. The challenging journey. That's right, this playthrough was challenging. I played White 2 version on challenge mode. There is an easy and challenge mode added to the games. Challenge mode gives NPCs more and stronger Pokemon with improved battle AI. Easy mode basically does the opposite. You unlock them by first beating another game, then transferring the key from that game over to a different copy. Black 2 unlocks challenge mode, White 2 unlocks easy mode. Luckily for me, many years ago, I had played Black 2 to unlock challenge mode and sent it over to White 2. I want to thank the me of 10 years ago for prepping for this video so I could immediately play challenge mode. As far as challenge mode goes, if you're more of a casual player like me, it is a challenge for sure. Gym leaders having additional Pokemon and items had me losing several fights and needing to come back and not play on autopilot. Speaking of gym leaders, let's meet them. We know Bianca is helping Professor Juniper, but now Charon is a gym leader of the first gym in Aspertia City. His gym is a school where he teaches young trainers how to become better Pokemon battlers. This makes complete sense for his character. Not only that he'd be a gym leader due to his competitive nature, but that gym would also be designed after a school. He was always the analytical and strategic type. I think that would translate perfect for somebody wanting to teach. Roxy is the second gym leader in Burbank City. She's a punk rock singer whose gym is designed after a grimy punk venue. When you get there, they're playing music so loud she can't even hear you for a challenge, so you have to defeat her trainers to get the music to quiet down. Not everything needs to be a puzzle for it to be a good gym. I will take a fun or funny atmosphere too. I think it comes down to being memorable, and the Burbank gym certainly is with its design and really fun song where you can actually hear singing. She's a poison type gym leader, and since I was adamant about only using my starter at this point due to me planning to add other Pokemon later in game, she slaughtered me numerous times. But nearby, there was a Magnemite who just laughs at poison type, so for this battle, I decided to use the beloved Gen 1 Magnet. It's soon after defeating her that you get introduced to Pokestar Studios. This is where you participate in a side adventure that allows you and your Pokemon to star in your own movies. You work with directors and find the best lines for the situation, which improves the movie's quality. You're trying to get a good ending, which will give the movie more points and will receive a better audience rating. You get to star in movies such as Full Metal Cop, Big Monster, Love and Battles, and Ghost Eraser. I didn't really care for this side feature back in the day, but I think it's cool now. It's fun going through these scenarios and seeing a Mecha Tyranitar. What I don't appreciate is that it forces you to interact with it when you encounter the area. I'm pro side features like this. I want them. Even if I personally don't like one of these side features, I still think there should always be side features like this that let you experiment with the games and your Pokemon. It's good for breaking up the pace. However, I really don't like when it grabs your hand and drags you through it. Other times they've done features like this, it was more of a suggestion. Sure, they interrupt you for a second and mention that it exists, and that's fine. There definitely should be a scripted tutorial to show you how it works, but only when you decide you'd like to interact with it. The third gym leader in Castelia City is Berg. We know this bug trainer well. His gym has had a redesign where you travel up cocoons to reach him. Luckily for me, the route just above Castelia City was available at this time, so I could catch Darumaka, who was vital to defeating Berg with its fire type attacks. Although I still lost a few times because Livvvid is just too powerful. Once you leave Castelia City, you get to meet Colress, a mysterious trainer specializing in steel-type Pokemon and keenly interested in discovering how to draw the true power from Pokemon. The fourth gym leader is in Nimbasa City, but before that you can battle Ingo and Emmett in a double battle with your opposite gender player character. The fourth gym leader is the electric-type trainer, Elessa, who has dyed her hair and became her very own fashion model. She also moved her gym from the roller coaster building into a new runway-style gym. It's really awesome when you beat her because it projects you up on the big screen. Clay returns as the rootin' tootin' fifth gym leader of Driftvale City. His gym is an interesting maze of conveyor belts taking you to different areas with trainer traps and dead ends. He was very easy to beat since I had Servine and Scraggy at this point, and both of them worked great against his ground types. After this battle, Clay introduces us to the Pokemon World Tournament. Now this right here, this is one of my favorite features in any Pokemon game ever. It's a battle facility that features tons of different battle styles like single, double, and of course, triple and rotation battles in an elimination style tournament. There's also a rental Pokemon variant that is a personal favorite of mine since I like the rental battle events. And your opponents stretch from all over Unova and the damn world. It's the Pokemon World Tournament after all. You can fight all the gym leaders from Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh. Then you can battle them all in a huge World Leaders bracket. And then after that, there's a Champion bracket with Red, Blue, Lance, Steven, Wallace, Cynthia, and Alder. It's so badass, I love it. This is what I mean by the pinnacle of the series, by the way. What an amazing event to have, battling all the gym leaders and champions throughout the series' history up until this point. Even battles you aren't participating in is a cool thing to see. Oh man, Blue actually beat Red. Steven beats Wallace for the true Hoenn representation. I cannot stress how much I love the World Tournament. And I also think this would make for a really fun video if you guys would like to see me run through all of it. Let me know in the comments below. The 6th gym is in Mistralton City, still led by the Flying type trainer, Skyla. By this time I had trained up my Electros, which made the fight easier, but definitely not easy. Her Sigilyph is so bulky and her Swanna was surprisingly tough too. Opalucid City is now solely ran by Drayden instead of being split between him and Iris. My Jellicent knew Blizzard by this point, and it had a lot of bulk, so it really took out his dragons pretty easily. Humalau City is where the final gym is, led by the super cool guy Marlin. Of all the gyms, this one was ironically the easiest for me despite being the final gym. Electros just bullied everything he had. I did like just how many people or places changed for these games. Seeing Cheren become a gym leader was awesome, and makes too much sense. Even a simple remodel with the same gym leaders like Berg and Alessa was nice, because you may like them as a gym leader, but it doesn't mean they can't switch it up a little bit. It was also interesting seeing them add non-Unova Pokemon to their teams to embrace the new additions, just like the returning players would. The story of Black and White 2 picks up where the first games left off. Team Plasma is going through a bit of a civil war between the two factions. The first one is loyal to King N and has reformed their views on their previous behavior. They now seek to protect Pokemon and make up for their past wrongdoings. They also maintain the old regal white uniforms. The former sage Rude largely runs this faction and will help the player throughout the story. N is in this game, but is off doing his own activities during the majority of the story until later. The other faction is led by Zinzalin, who seeks to continue what Getsis was seeking to do in the first game, simply conquer the world. This faction is wearing new black uniforms. They start interacting with the player right in the beginning of the story, however the story takes much more of a subtle tone this time around. In the video for the first games, I joked about how the story wouldn't wait until the 7th gym badge to pick up the pace and conclude soon after. Well, in this game, that's kind of what it does. You'll interact with Team Plasma every so often, and they're doing small petty crimes. You beat them up, they run away. However, by the time you beat the 7th gym in Opalucid City, Team Plasma begins a massive operation via a freaking floating pirate ship with a massive ice cannon. They start pelting Unova with blasts of ice in the surrounding towns and routes will be covered in it. What's funny about this is Zinzolin was found in the cold storage a few times in the first game and was the most defiant when he was captured. This set up his character to have all ice type Pokemon like Cryogonal, and now he has a pirate ship with an ice cannon. I think it's a pretty funny and smart callback to the first game. He's like a Batman villain's origin story.
My freezing engine will be complete.
On board this cool pirate ship, you discover that the ice cannon is really Kyurem, and the smart Colress character you met earlier is one of their masterminds. Although he's not really in line with their beliefs, but using their capabilities and technology to further his own understanding about drawing out Pokemon's power. Eventually, Getsis is revealed to still be alive and controlling the group, but he seems far less regal and collected, and more obsessed with conquering the world at all costs, even if it means freezing it over. He'll use the power of DNA splicers to recombine either Zekrom or Reshiram to combine with Kyurem. This is another callback to the first game story where it's mentioned that Zekrom and Reshiram were a single Pokemon until they split due to their twin trainers disagreeing on truth and ideals. Kyurem was left as the residual after effects of this split. This means it's also a perfect vessel Pokemon for DNA splicing shenanigans. Getsis baits N into showing up for a fight and springs the trap, with Kyurem turning into an anti-aircraft gun to capture N's dragon. After capturing N's dragon, Getsis fuses the two dragons together. These designs are so cool. I love the tube arcing in and out of the Pokemon, making it look like a grotesque and unnatural human experiment. You battle both the fused dragon and Getsis, and neither dragon is available to catch during the story, and I actually really like that choice. Giving you a wildly powerful legendary Pokemon right before the Elite Four always felt kind of weird, and I personally think that should be a type of reward in the post-game. Although you could dispute this because, like I mentioned earlier, the 3 Musketeer legendaries are so blatantly put in front of you to catch. Although there is a difference because those 3 have base stats of 580, whereas Zekrom and Reshiram are at 680 and Kyurem is at 660. So the 3 Musketeers are legendary, but they're not quite as strong as the box legendaries. Defeating Getsis causes him to lose his mind again. Before he can be apprehended, the Triad shows up and whisks him away. They explain later that he's not going to be a threat anymore because his mind is so broken. Yeah, okay, he should still be on trial. If it feels like I covered the story pretty quick, that's because that's how it feels. The story felt a bit light this time around, both in length and substance. In the first game, you're asked very powerful questions about the nature of the relationship between Pokemon and humans. There are crucial moments in that game from beginning to end, where you're trying to figure out what Team Plasma's motivations are and learning more about N and what he's all about. The story itself is tied to the progression of your character in regards to the ascension into the Pokemon League, as that was the prophecy. The two trainers with their two dragons clashing to see which one would dictate the outcome. In this game, it feels like you're more cleaning up the remnants of the unresolved things from the last game. And I think that's overall fine, but I don't really feel satisfied in regard to Ghetsis. You could argue that this ending seemingly looks just like the last game's ending. Sure, the Triad claims his mind is broken, and he won't be a threat, but it's not like we know their personalities super well to believe them. I mean, they're his minions after all, sworn to do his bidding. What's to say Ghetsis didn't tell them to say that to us? I'm not sure if they had planned for him to return in an official capacity in later games or something. There are alternate universe versions of Ghetsis in Ultra Sun and Moon, but I don't really count that, because that's an alternate universe apparently where he won. I'm not talking about that Ghetsis, I'm talking about this Ghetsis in our universe. Where I do like the story is in regards to N. His character progression feels really satisfying, and prior to the battles with Ghetsis, N tries to appeal to him. All the while Ghetsis is mocking him, calling him a freak. N stays calm and keeps encouraging Ghetsis to release his hatred, and at one point even calling him father. Despite all the things Ghetsis has done to the world and to N specifically, N takes all the awful things Ghetsis says and ignores it. It doesn't end up working, but I don't think that takes away from showing us N's nature. In regards to N, the story is satisfying as he vows to use his powers of communicating with Pokemon to help mend the relationship with Pokemon and humans. I know this may sound confusing, but I also like that the story does not interrupt your battles in the Elite Four later. The intervention of N's castle in the first game felt justified and properly built up. Since the story is much lighter and less built up in these games, I think it would have felt undeserved to have copied that same story beat. I don't want to give the impression that I think the story is bad in Black and White 2, it's just lighter. And considering these are the first games with a number 2 in its title, you can argue that the audience should familiarize themselves with the first story, which could lend brevity to the second game story since we're simply being reintroduced to characters rather than meeting them for the first time. In regards to the Elite Four, they are actually the same from the first game: Chantal, Marshall, Grimsley, and Caitlin. But of course they all have different Pokemon from previous generations in newly designed rooms. The big difference is Iris is not the League champion. And my god, is this one of the more memorable champion fights I've ever had. She's in this huge golden throne room with the cosmic backdrop. The fight itself retains that cosmic setting and has a fantastic song playing. She's a really tough champion too, as any dragon trainer would be, of course. The game isn't over yet. Falling in line with its predecessors, the sequels has a very lengthy postgame. You arrive back at home and are greeted by Hugh and his sister, who's been reunited with her Pokemon. But she's been having dreams of a Zoroark. The Zoroark in her dreams is calling our name and is somewhere on Victory Road. This search for Zoroark will lead you into the actual full ruins of the castle to meet back up with N. When you enter the room where N was confronted in the last games, his altered theme starts playing. It starts off ominous, but then it sounds sweet and delicate. He reminisces on the battle of ideas and truth from years ago in this very spot. So of course we have to battle him for old time's sake. The battle is pretty cool, it's just you versus his dragon. After defeating him, he will give you the corresponding stone to encounter the dragon to catch for yourself. This means N is separating from the Pokemon. It's a bittersweet moment with the nice music and his dragon sad to see him go. He isn't gone forever though. Once you catch his dragon and cure him, he will start appearing back at the castle for a battle once a month with a changing team depending on the seasons. Alder is also available to battle back at his schoolhouse, giving you an opportunity to battle the former champion. Then there's legendaries. There are so many legendaries to catch. Latios or Latios, the Lake Spirits, the Regis and Regigigas, Cresselia and Heatran. This is also the game that introduced the Shiny Charm for completing the National Pokedex. This makes the odds go from 1 in 8,192 to roughly 1 in 2,731. Speaking of shiny, you can get yourself a shiny Haxorus at the Nature Preserve once you simply see all the regional Pokemon. Then the map is further opened up, like the Clay Tunnel, Twist Mountain, the Abyssal Ruins, Icarus City, and of course a return to where the games first began by traveling back over the beautiful Sky Arrow Bridge. You get to see Pinwheel Forest again, Necrene City with its museum and train tracks, but there is nothing quite like returning home, Unova Town, where the first game started. You can visit the home of the previous hero, and his mom is nice enough to heal us whenever we need it. She mentions how we look just like our mom. That's because our mom used to work in the Pokemon Center, and the other hero's mom used to be a trainer, so she'd heal their Pokemon there. It's such a nice, cozy feeling to come back here where the first game started and where these games finish. Do you remember what it was like playing Gen 1 and arriving back at Pallet Town by the time you beat Gen 2? That's what this feels like. It's really nice. Now that I've replayed and experienced Generation 5 again, I want to talk about it broadly and give my thoughts on it. Ever since the first game's release, it's felt controversial. People don't like the designs, the battle animations, the first game's having a restriction to only Unova Pokemon during the main story, and probably other reasons too, but those are some of the more common criticisms I've seen in my own experience. I would like to tackle some of those arguments. And to simplify the argument, I'm going to talk about it in retrospect, when Generation 5 was the most recent gen in the series. I want to do that because I think the criticisms of Generation 5 get severely weaker over time, and I believe that many of the remaining criticisms feel like carryovers from that era that are simply accepted as truth. In regards to designs, nobody is right or wrong. The designs of Pokemon is subjective, like any art. Do you ever like something or dislike something and it's hard to explain exactly what you mean? There are people who don't like the designs and they aren't wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong either for liking them. Yes, I love Trubbish and Vanillux, and if you don't, I get it. But if the argument is they're based on inanimate objects, so is Grimer and Geodude, Sludge and a rock. I'm not throwing shade at those two, but I think the comparison is fair. Another complaint is that it copies Generation 1. Some of that is objectively true. These games make a deliberate effort to recapture that feeling that many of us who started with Red and Blue had. An entire new Pokedex for the duration of the story in the first games. Red and Blue, Black and White. Zekrom has red eyes and blue electricity pulsing through it. Reshiram has blue eyes and red flames. Get it? Red and Blue. But is that so bad? To want to recapture what those games did? I don't think so. I remember seeing the marketing and deliberately refusing to look up the Korokoro leaks. And when the games released in Japan, I did not download a ROM to check everything out. I wanted to have the magic and wonder of running into things I had never seen before, and it succeeded. Back in the day, I did have that feeling playing Black and White. And by the sequel games, I was fine having the old editions too. Generation 5 offers you two entirely different ways to enjoy it. If you love it like I do, the first games give you such a great experience to soak in Unova. And if you don't like that restrictive style, the sequels have a massive roster that lets you run wild. However, there's still something I want to address directly, that the Dex itself copies Generation 1. I'll first start by addressing the ones I do think are very on the nose as far as referencing Gen 1 Pokemon. Timber, it's nearly identical to the Machop family, a fighting type Pokemon whose third form needs to be traded in order to evolve. The Gigalith line does evolve in the same way as the Golem line, and their prior evolutions are mostly found in caves. But design-wise, they really don't look similar at all. Gigalith isn't even a ground type like Golem is. And the Clink family does look a bit like the Magnemite family. But all of these examples are still new Pokemon. So what if they kind of look like another thing or they evolve in the same way? It's still something new. I don't like Woobat, it's just another Zubat. You listen to me. By Generation 5, I'm done with Zubats, goddammit. I've been playing through these games over the last year for this channel, and I've had enough of them. Yes, give me an adorable psychic bat with fur. Yeah, but Pitta copies Pidgey. You mean an early bird Pokemon like Hoot Hoot, Tailo, and Starly? Patrat copies Rattata. You mean an early rodent Pokemon like Sentrant, Zigzagoon, or Bidoof? The fossil Pokemon copy Ammonite and Kabuto. Oh, so I guess Gen 3 and Gen 4 didn't also do something similar? The legendary Musketeer trio copies the trio idea of Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Oh, so the roaming beasts, Regis, and lake spirits don't also do that? Bouffalant looks like a Tauros. Okay, you got me on that one. Yes, there are a handful of things that look like things from Generation 1, and it's pretty on the nose sometimes. However, Generation 1 is known for establishing all of the foundations of the current series right up until today. If you're wondering why I only compared Pokemon in Gen 5 to Generation 1, that's because the basis of the accusation always seemed to be directed at Generation 1. And if you attempt to broaden the argument, I think it's not even worth addressing. If I turn the tables, I can show you what I mean. Spheal is a copy of Seal. Plusle and Minun copy Pikachu and Pichu. Houndour copies Growlithe. Carnivine copies Keknia. Beautifly just copies Butterfree. Do you see what I mean? Gen 5 as a whole gets this unfair stigma heaped upon it that I think carries no weight, and I'm actually helping the criticism I'm arguing against by only comparing it through Generation 1 and 4. If you do what I just did to the whole series, you're going to see that all over the place. And obviously I'm not against it. That's going to happen. Many Pokemon are based on animals, and there are only so many animals to be inspired by. I'm not going to complain about a bag of trash and an ice cream cone. And I mean, nobody complains about the keychain. The story may also catch some flack. I even critiqued its conclusion in regards to Getsus a little bit. But even a story that maybe has some loose ends should be looked at broadly. In terms of when these games had released, I believe that these were the best stories in the series. It points a finger at the player for once. What do you think about the idea of capturing Pokemon against their will and making them fight against each other? Before this, we're always chasing the ambitions of evil men. Gen 1 and 2 is go and defeat Team Rocket to save the region. Gen 3 is a bit more interesting with the world-altering calamities between Team Aqua and Magma. The stakes are raised for sure, but it's still chasing down a villain who is chasing their ambition. Gen 4 is Cyrus trying to create his own world. So all the generation that came before this is a story focusing on the big bads and their motivations. And we still do have that with Getsus. Even if his argument was bogus the whole time, the actual question isn't. Pokemon don't go into their Pokeballs willingly. You have to catch them. You have to beat them up and catch them when they're weak. The question posed to the player way back in the first game still resonate going into the second one. It's in the sequels where we see N get the answers to that question. He does want a future without the captivity of Pokeballs, where humans and Pokemon can coexist willingly with each other. For now, he will strive to improve the relationship between the two with his gift, because there is no one who can understand the evil of some humans and the innocence of Pokemon like he can. The Pokemon Black and White 2 experience is the pinnacle of Pokemon for me. It combines the Pokedex with older generations to give players who want to see old familiars a chance to use them. That solution appeases both sides. If you do or don't want to use something, that's entirely up to you. The music is absolutely amazing, especially the final fight with Iris. The Pokemon World Tournament feels like the culmination of so many amazing battles and moments squeezed into one event. If the series ended here, I could honestly say it ended on a high. Folks, that's all I've got for Pokemon Black and White 2. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Thank you to my YouTube channel members Quinn, Chris Redbeard, and Brewham, and to my patrons Shio, Lyra, Eon Kane, and Martain. My Patreon is free, so check me out over there if you'd like to see what I'm up to next before anybody else. But if you become a paid member on YouTube or Patreon, I'll shout you out in my videos, and it greatly helps me to continue to do this long into the future. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.